craft technology. Remember, I was
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
that light craft and that.
Right. Is it
Um,
similar to like a light sail, or like what does it mean, light craft? What makes it light craft?
so they use like a microwave laser and they blast it at this target and it like creates a little impulse spark which they can float the thing on.
Hmm.
And this is interesting because this is also like I don't know if have you ever heard of Project Bluebeam?
No.
Well, it's like there's a technology for creating displays in the air too, so that not only can they light up a little bit of air, they can also like draw in the air. So not only can they use it to like spark and propel this little craft, but they can also use it to draw pictures in the air with these 3D light displays. There's a company called Holovect that does some of this, and there's a couple other companies in Japan that do this as well. But it's basically a technology they could create like God coming down from heaven or Jesus, and there was like a whole thing on this about like this using this as a psychological operations weapon in wartime because they could literally take a laser display and make make the do it over Vietnam and have Buddha come out the clouds and everyone have all the soldiers drop to their knees right when they launch their attack or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Some They were like literally considering this stuff for military applications and stuff, but
Hmm. Well,
it's
like you
it's
said,
super
I mean, anything that isn't explained, is magic, or any sort of technology that you don't
right.
understand is magic. So it would be magic to them.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that they can use it for is not only can they use it to propel this little like gimbal looking craft that they have. They have this little dish that they had in the experiments and but not only can they use it for that, but they can shine it on the leading edge of like a say that your airplane's flying along in enemy aircraft, so they could just energize the make this plasma on the leading surface of the right wing, right, and all of a sudden their right wing becomes lighter and they start banking to the left.
Yeah.
So you can use it to kind of like there's a whole patent on it we have on using this technology to take control of aircraft and like manipulate their flight patterns with and where to shine it on the wing to get the best results for this.
Okay. Well, that's got some implications.
So this is some crazy stuff, man,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
Wow.
it's just using like tools. It's just you give a scientist a bunch of tools and be like, all right, well, how can we use this in creative ways for warfare? And it's getting scary now, especially with drones
I
and
don't know that all scientists would instantly go to warfare, but I'm sure some are out there.
they're glad that I never that I went on the side of light to expose all this stuff rather than working for them because the stuff that comes in my head, I'm like, oh no, it's bad
I don't know
sometimes.
if we should even go there.
No, we're not gonna. I'm
Good,
not gonna
good,
let
good,
no.
good, good. Let me ask you, do you believe in aliens?
Well, let me tell you, right? We're either all alone in the universe or there's life everywhere, and either one is equally as terrifying. That's
Answer
RBC
the
Core.
question, sir. It's a yes or a no.
um, I don't know, man. I don't really know.
You're
I don't have
you're
any
look at
evidence.
your
I can't
name. Look,
say
wait, where is
yes.
it? Look,
I
wait.
can't say yes. I believe
Look
in
at your
scientists.
name. It says alien scientist.
I
What?
believe in scientists.
So what makes it alien then?
Well, alien can also mean, foreign, it could be outside the box and outside the normal, it doesn't have to
Okay,
mean,
so that's what you're going for.
we come from France, or Mexico.
Okay.
No.
Or you are some sort of weird mixture between Tim Pool and Luke Rukowski.
Right now. I did
Wearing
it
a
on
Luke.
purpose for the show, man.
Did
It's
you?
funny.
It's like you melded them together and became an alien scientist. And
So, I know
that's
how to
funny.
assimilate with your culture quite well.
You're officially a podcaster now. Congratulations. It's funny.
So man, I don't know if I have some weird people tell me some weird stories, man. But there's a whole divide in ufology. It's really there's a movie called Mirage Men, and I'm gonna
Okay.
be having one of the guys on from that. His name is Walter Bosley. I'm reading actually one of his books right now in preparation for getting him on the show.
Cool.
And Walter Bosley in the Mirage Men, they were talking about all these underground nuclear tests, which caused all this, which they were then they wanted to test and monitor the radiation and the effects of the health that it was having on the local environment. So they were
Yeah.
taking cattle and removing the thyroid glands and then leaving them on the side of the road. So somewhere along the line, the people started finding all these dead cattle with their organs removed, and started,
Yeah.
getting questions about it. And so the military started spreading, according to this, the military started spreading theories that aliens were doing it, so they wouldn't have to pay the ranchers for the cattle that they were taking to monitor, like the.
See, now
Because what
that
happens
makes a
is,
lot more sense to me.
right. So like this is a whole thing. This whole cattle mutilation thing could have started from military starting rumors, so that they didn't have to pay for cattle that were that they were taking and killing to get to analyze their thyroid glands to test for the radioactive iodine uptake and to test for the radiation effects for these underground nuclear tests that they didn't want to tell the public about. So it kind of goes this full circle of you have the military, and then they talk about this other case with this guy named what the heck was his name? Paul Benowitz. And Paul Benowitz would live next to an Air Force base, and he was filming all these test flights of these experimental aircraft and taking data on them, and he had all this signals and receiving equipment to kind of listen in and what was going on at the base, and he was super curious what was happening at the base. And I can't get the Tim Pool Rudkowski thing out of my head now.
It's pretty good, dude. People were saying it's Luke Poole. Hold on, there's a couple of good ones actually. Let me go back real quick.
It's funny, dude.
It's pretty good. We got Tuke Lul, Lim Pulski. It's pretty funny. Milk Toast Alien Scientist Sitter. Very nice. Good job, Kat.
But there was this dude named Richard Doty, all right, who worked for the U.S. Air Force Counterintelligence Agency, and this dude's job for the Air Force was literally to go out and feed Paul Benowitz nonsense and disinformation. So they were tuned. NSA had tuned into his receivers, and they were beaming alien messages at him through his receivers. He was starting, because this guy befriended him and started talking to him. He's like, well, what if it was aliens? It might be aliens. And then they started sending him all this stuff to make him think it was aliens. And then he's like, and he went crazy and actually killed himself because he thought it was aliens.
Oh, geez.
And so, yeah, it's a real story. And it's in this movie, Mirage Man. You can go watch it for free on YouTube. And it's super kind of interesting, because like it shows you what lengths that the Air Force will go to just to confuse the public about what's really going on. And there's a lot of rumors that all the alien stuff and all these groups and people that push the alien stuff is actually works in favor of disinformation for the government, because it's actually government programs and operations that are being disguised now as aliens, so that people will think it's aliens, and it's a good cover. So that the cover up is not really that the government's covering up the evidence for aliens, is that they've been spreading these rumors of aliens to cover up for other programs, and then they don't want to admit to any of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And so that's the divide we have. So we got a couple divides. There's that one is whether it's aliens, or whether the aliens are the government's cover story, or whether the government's covering for aliens, or
both.
What's the truth there, or whether it's both. Yeah,
right.
because it could be both. Why not both?
I mean, Roswell, do you think a craft landed there, or do you think it's just like some secret military, aircraft test material?
I think with the Manhattan Project and all the secrecy, they could have covered it up, as long as it wasn't that big. I mean, they couldn't have, but they could have and covered it up with, I believe. But the thing is, how would they, and then where would they? And I've done a lot of research into that. This guy, UFOexplorations.com, Anthony Bragalia, I'm trying to get him to come on the show. He's been given a couple other interviews, and I've talked to him on the phone before. But he's done a lot of research into where that material went from Roswell, where it would have gone, these contracts between so eventually it went to Wright-Patterson, according to a lot of these researchers, and that Wright-Patterson held this stuff at a place called the Blue Room, which was their foreign artifacts storage facility for any kind of foreign artifact that was unidentified, and it would go to this Blue Room. It was called Senator Barry Goldwater tried to get access to that in the 80s or 90s and was denied. And then they said that first they said it didn't exist, and then they said it existed, but they destroyed everything. And then it's kind of, they gave him the runaround on it.
Sure,
apparently some of it went to the, I mean, if it was these alien metals, as they say, it had to have go to somewhere that could analyze that stuff. And the obvious contractor was Battelle in Ohio, which is they're like metallurgy experts. And so there's a couple guys that worked for Battelle. John Elroy Center said he was given some weird material at one point and told to analyze it, and he said he'd never seen anything like it, and it felt like he shouldn't have been holding it. Like it was just, he said it was that memory, again, that memory foil that a lot of these people talk about, and a lot of those Roswell witnesses mention and talk about.
Interesting.
It's super interesting, and there's a lot of the debate going back and forth. I just tweeted out to the Skeptics Guide of the Universe because they were talking about this, and they said that there's studies on nitinol and memory metals going back 100 years, and I never came across anything that predates, 1949, is when Battelle started doing, a lot of research on titanium alloys, allegedly for aircraft research, and they had like, and but there are some interesting things that they did in there for analyze. The first report was a whole method for creating super pure titanium so that they could create these alloys. So they had to figure out a way to create super pure titanium, and methods for the metallurgy for creating super pure titanium. And then they had methods for analyzing titanium samples. And they talked a lot about these methods that they produced for analyzing various titanium samples. So it kind of hints at that they were, starting to investigate these things right around that time of Roswell. But again, there's no smoking gun. There's no like hard proof that's like, boom, oh, there's Roswell material, and they're working on it at government labs, for government contracts and trying to develop the technology and reverse engineer it. There's no smoking gun for that, and I've never found one. And believe me, we've been looking for quite a while. There's some interesting things, like the guy who who got the Nobel Prize for quasi-crystals, Daniel Shechtman, had done his postdoc at Wright-Patterson, and there's a lot of interesting research that's done at Wright-Patterson, and that's where U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology is, and NASIC, the National Aerospace Intelligence Center, are both right there. So it's seems like the place, if there were ever a place that this was going on, that would be the place for it.
Yeah.
But again, it'd be hard pressed to find anyone that knows anything that would talk. So, and again, the investigation continues, but we have this debate going on over that. First off, are aliens real, or is that just a cover up, or both, right? So then the next one is whether or not this technology was, because there's a debate going on with me and my friend Mark there, from the Falcon Space group down in New Jersey, and he seems to think like Michael Stratt and Stephen Greer and some of these other guys that the Nazis figured this out, and that Paperclip brought it to the U.S., and that they developed it in these, Operation Paperclip under NASA with these Nazi scientists, and that there's been a secret space program since the 50s that's had anti-gravity technology, and this has all been just covered up and kept under the rug. So that's like that's whole one side of it over here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, no, with the mainstream physics and everyone that I'm talking to with these PhD scientists and stuff, gravity's a really hard problem, and no one has figured it out, and Einstein did write a lot of the theory that we've had to like work around, about 100 years. Yeah, it's a 100-year-old theory,
Yeah.
but it's not like, these guys over here say that, oh, well, we can't go to space because some guy 100 years ago said so. And that's not really what I think is going on. It's more complex than that. And so that's why we have the lab now to test out these things, to actually build these things. So we have all these declassified documents now. I've been going after the science. So if it did exist back in the 50s and has been around since then, we have all like the scientific studies. We have like a lot of patents, a lot of stuff going back that far. Why don't we build it and see if any of it works?
Well,
And then
what about you mentioned Stephen Greer?
Yeah,
Dr. Greer. Have you seen his movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind?
I believe so. I believe I've seen it.
Essentially, it's about another dimension, like basically communicating with aliens. Essentially, what he's alluding to in this video is that we can communicate with them if we basically find like it's through our mental power. Like we can achieve almost like a DMT trip, but without drugs. It's like because we can, if you call to them and we can connect to them on a different dimension through our the power that's within our mind. Essentially, it's a very interesting article or video to watch. But that would, it's almost like what you said earlier, to you would have to beat gravity, and if you can go faster than light, rather, you can beat gravity. But if we can go to another dimension, that's essentially doing the same thing, isn't it? Right? I mean, it's very similar.
Well, first off, we should give that UFO a spin right there.
Okay.
Get it spun up.
I can't deny the alien scientists on a UFO spin.
But Stephen Greer, and I hear a lot about that interdimensionality, and that means a little bit different thing to me as a physicist,
Right.
and my understanding of dimensions.
What does it mean to you then?
And dimensionality. I really think that if UFOs exist, UFOs, these things that people are seeing, I believe that they're physical. I
Right.
believe that, they can't all be top secret programs of the U.S. because during World War II, those Foo Fighters, those balls of light, those clearly weren't ours or anyone's at the time.
But what if these UFOs are covered in, they figured out the outer casing, like you kind of imagined before about this, that bends light.
Yeah, but
and
how?
Obviously they are more advanced. Humor me though, like
Yeah.
if they can travel faster than light, and that means they supersede gravity, like you kind of alluded to. If we could go faster than light, then the gravity wouldn't affect them, those ships. That's why they can be like boop 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 boop,
Yeah.
whatever, because gravity, they're just like, whatever, I'm just existing in this space. It almost feels like it's the same thing, like on a different, like there's the physical version of it and then the mental version of it. And just looking at it, it's they're very similar in a sense, where one is a physical representation of the physical realm, one dimension, and then a different dimension is the mental side of things. I don't know if I believe it, but
I know
I
there's a
could
lot
see
of
it though.
unanswered questions like that in science, and like this consciousness stuff, and people's, I'm very skeptical of a lot of that stuff, like the remote viewing stuff. I'm a skeptic on. I don't.
Yeah.
I think that there's maybe something else to explain it, and then of course I'm a skeptic that Stephen Greer or anyone else can summon aliens with their mind and with their thoughts too. I don't. I mean, that sounds crazy talk to me. And
at first glance, I agree. It does sound crazy.
and then to tell me like my mental energy and my